In this video and the next one, I want to talk about the content-aware tools in Photoshop. These include the content-aware move tool, content-aware fill tool, and content-aware scale tool. These are pretty incredible, semi-magical, powerful tools. They also are among the squirreliest of the Photoshop tools. And by that I mean they're not always going to do what you might expect them to do. And they take a little bit of practice and patience and try to wrap your head around exactly how they're operating so you can predict what they're going to do well and what they're going to not do so well. Okay, well, let's get started. The first thing I want to play with is this image of this beautiful bright green lichen on a very dark background with all these crazy molds and lichens behind it. Can't even remember where I took this. But I want to really improve this. First of all, I don't like that this lichen is sitting right in the middle. Now I want to crop it a little bit because the other thing I don't like, let me just bring this down. The other thing I don't love about it is I don't love all that blank space there. So I'm just going to crop it in, and that is much nicer, but I'm still not really satisfied with where the lichen is. I want to kind of move it less sort of off to the left and centered, and maybe down into this 1/3 area. So this is where the content-aware move tool is going to come into play. Now before I launch that tool, I want to go ahead and make sure that I have a touch-up layer. Notice I'm not even bothering with copying the background layer. I don't need to worry about that. I just need a touch-up layer so that I don't actually do any destruction to the original pixel layer. And this works with two of the content-aware tools I'm going to show you, the two that I'm going to show you in this video. Doesn't work with the content-aware scale, but this is a really important thing to remember, to work on that extra layer so that you have, not just so that you're non-destructive, but so you have some flexibility and some ability to do some more changes, because these tools, like I said, don't always do what you hope they'll do on the first time. Okay. So the content-aware tool lives on the toolbar. It lives among the healing tools, just below the patch tool and right above the red eye tool. If you've wondered why I haven't mentioned the red eye tool, it's because it's actually a really pointless tool. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that tool. Make sure we're on the touch-up layer. Make sure sample all layers is selected. I'll show you about this in a second, and we're just going to leave the structure and the color on. I'm also going to introduce you to those. They're a little bit, you kind of have to just mess with them, but I'll explain them a little bit. Okay, so once we have this tool here, I'm just going to loosely select this. This is just like working with a lasso tool. And you might be tempted to be more precise. It actually is not helpful with this tool. And I'll show you that in a second. So I just select it, make sure I'm on the touch-up layer, and I'm just going to move it sort of over in this area next to that pink stuff. And this takes an enormous amount of memory. It can be a little bit slow because it's working its sort of semi-magic. And there we go. Now, you know what? I don't like that so well. And I think I know why. So I have the color up here set at 4. That's kind of mid-range. And so it's trying to actually match these colors, and it's doing kind of damage to the interest of the scene. It's trying to sort of mush everything together to make it sort of match better. And I would rather it left the texture. So let's backtrack and go back here. And I'm going to do two things just so I can show you two things in one. I'm going to make the color at 0, and I'm also going to do the transform on drop. So let's go ahead and move this over again. And now notice one of the things that happened is as I moved it over, it gave me a transfer menu. I'm still on the touch-up layer, by the way, just to make sure. So I can actually do two things. I can make this a little larger, which I love, or I could make it smaller, but I think I'll make it larger. And also move it over. And let's see how that works. I like it bigger, but let's see what happens on the left side. Oh, much better. So you notice with dropping the color down to 0, it didn't try to match it, and it actually left this wonderful texture intact. Yeah, I really like that. Now, as long as I'm on the touch-up layer, if I wanted to, I could go in. It's repeating some of these spots a little bit, and actually I kind of wish I had the green over there. I can go down to our favorite tool, at least it's mine, the Clone Stamp tool. This is actually one of the very oldest tools in Photoshop and still really a wonderful tool. I'm just going to grab some of this and just, oops, let's make sure all layers, there we go. Sample it, and there we go. Nope, what's going on? And why does this always happen? Oh, because I'm selected. Don't you love it when I make mistakes? So this is probably my most common mistake. I still have this selected, and so nothing will happen except in the selected area. So let's get out of there. Let's try that again. And now when I go over, it's going to actually add that green. Now that's not quite doing what I want because it's a little bit too dark and fierce. So instead, I'm going to go ahead and drop the opacity down. This is one of my favorite tricks with this tool. I'm going to make that a little bit harder, and I'm going to go ahead and try that again, and there we go. I can actually add just a little bit of that green texture in and break it up. Okay, well, let's leave that there. I'm pretty happy with that. And let's take a look at a different image. Let's see. Oh, where is it? Not that one. There we go. Let's go to Joshua Tree. So in this image, I want to do another kind of a move just for aesthetics and see how it works out. And then I want to show you a move that is not going to go so well. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to our Content Aware Move tool. Make sure we put over here. Make sure we put an extra layer on for our touch-up. And then we're going to go ahead and grab, I think I want to just move, I like this image, but I feel like all of these dark shrubs are sort of clumped up together. So I'm going to loosely grab this guy. Oops. Let's try him again. It's late. Okay, come on. There we go. And just move him down somewhere along here, nice and low, so he's sort of falling off the edge. I don't think I need to transform him, so I'll just go ahead and do that without transforming. Oh, and that's very interesting. So you can see it went ahead and grabbed some of these other shrubs and just sort of laid those in as a replacement. Not a bad job, but again, you might want to go in and actually do some other work. So I can go in with my clone tool, which I love. There we go. And I brought the opacity up a little bit, and I can just select, let's say, a little bit of this area. I'm going to go in rather carefully, and maybe a little bit of, I'm not sure where it got that, but just add a little bit more of that. And that's good. I did that really quickly. I probably would do some more thought. It looks like we've got some little repetitions and some other things going on, but those are things you can tweak. You pretty much always will have to tweak after you do one of these content-aware tools. It's not going to be absolutely perfect the first time, but still it's going to save you an awful lot of labor. Now, let me show you an example of using this content-aware tool, something that will not work well. What if we wanted to move this Joshua Tree over? Let's just go ahead and loosely select it. And grab the rest of that. And there we go. And let's just move it over here. Well, let's try it up here. So we'll just move it a little bit up. We don't really need to transform it, but maybe just a little bit. We could just make it a little bit bigger. Make sure it's still sitting on that rocky outcrop, and let's see what that looks like. Now, you know, it's not as bad as you might expect, but you can see that it did some really weird things with the clouds because it moved from a very light area to a dark area. And let's zoom in and see how things are looking here. And you can see that it just had a really hard time with trying to figure out the difference between these different areas. So it might be okay to start if you wanted to move that over, but there's going to be an awful lot of cleanup to do here. Okay, so not exactly the easiest way to do a more complicated selection. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move that back, and we'll go ahead and leave this be and go over to another image where I'm going to show you a little bit about one more thing about content-aware move, and then a lot more about content-aware fill. So, oops, wrong one. There we go. Okay, so here we are, and I like this image. I like the composition of it. I actually do like the shadow in here, but I'm going to both do a content move and a content fill just to show you what that's like in case you wanted to ever remove a shadow. It's very helpful. But first of all, I want to do another content aware move. I can go ahead and select this shadow, and we're going to move it over. And since we've got the transform on, we'll go ahead and make it a little bit bigger. That should be fun. And now you see that it actually had quite a bit of trouble if we take this off with this sort of haloing and the color here. So a little bit of an issue. Let's try to go back and do a color match. So let's go back and try selecting it again. Make sure that we didn't mess anything up there. And we're going to actually pull the color up to about 5. Move it over. Do a little transformation. And let's see how we do this time. Much better. So you can see it matched up the colors. We still have a little cleanup to do with this. It seems like it pulled some of that texture over there, but that's a much better choice.